Hi, I'm Mara Webster with In Creative Company, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by the fantastically talented Alisha Weir to talk all about her role in the film Abigail. And in starting off, I love the fact that when you got this script, that you found it to be something that was very different from any characters that you'd played before or any movies that you've done previously. And so I was just interested in the experience of reading the script for the first time and starting to audition and have conversations about this role.
So, my agent sent us in this script to see what we thought of it and if we liked the storyline and the character. And as soon as me and my family read the script, we loved it so much. I loved everything about it. And I thought it would be so much fun to get to play a ballerina vampire because that doesn't come around often. And when it did come around, I was so excited. And I just really, really wanted to audition because I really wanted to give Abigail a shot. And so I started my auditions and I done a self tape and then I met the directors and we talked about Abigail. We just had a chat. Then I did my final audition, which was a chemistry read with Melissa, and we done the scenes. And then 3 days later, I found out I got the role, and I was so excited.
I love that. And it sounds like you had a really extensive rehearsal period for the film as well, of about 2 to 3 months. And at the beginning, there wasn't as much of Abigail being a ballerina to such an extent. And that really came out of the rehearsal process. And so, how did that end up becoming a lot more of who she was?
I think at the start when I was talking to Matt and Tyler about everything and talking about her character, I think the more we talked about it and our incredible choreographer Belinda, we all had so many ideas and the excitement and ideas just built and built. And as we started rehearsing, then we started sending videos back and forth, and it started to become a very, very big part of Abigail's character and a very big part of her personality. And I couldn't wait to do that because we tried to incorporate dance so that no matter what Abigail was doing, she was always doing it in a balletic form. She was always leaping and pirouetting everywhere she went. And I think that's what makes Abigail so unique.
And you've trained in a lot of different styles of dance previously, but this was the first time that you'd been doing any ballet. But how
Yeah.
did the experience that you have in dance in other areas really help you in learning that for the first time?
That definitely helped me in many ways. I mean, besides the opening scene where I'm on point, which was very new to me as I'd never gone on point, for the other bits where, like I was saying earlier, she's balletic in everything she does, and the routines as well that you see later on in her little theater, Abigail's little theater. It helped that I had a dance experience because I knew how to do turns and leaps and I was flexible. So it definitely helped in that way. And for the opening scene going on point, I did have to learn that as I'd never gone on point. So that's what the 2 to 3 months of rehearsals was, preparing for that, learning the routine, and preparing and strengthening my muscles and feet to go on point.
And this was also the first time that you had to do an American accent for any of your roles as well. But obviously, I've seen you do English accents before. What was the experience of really finessing the American accent? Because it wasn't just a case of mastering it, it was also the fact that you then had to do it with stunt teeth in when she is in vampire form as well.
Yes, I love doing accents. I mean, in Matilda, I had a British accent and I am Irish, and getting to do an American accent was so much fun and I couldn't wait. I think it really added to Abigail's character. And I mean, when I had the costume and the teeth and the eyes and the blood and everything going on, and especially the accent as well, I mean, it really formed Abigail for me and helped me get into her character as she was nothing like me. I mean, completely different person, and that helped me leave myself behind and really transform myself into Abigail. And the teeth, I had like a scanning for my teeth to get them, and they were like retainers. So before they said action, I'd pop the retainers in, and it did take a little bit of getting used to it. It was strange sometimes, getting to speaking with them, and then also with the accent as well. But for I didn't have to wear them all the time, which was good. And then I also had the stunt teeth, which were a different pair as well, and they were even bigger, and they took up majority of my mouth. And thank God I didn't have to do a lot of speaking in those teeth, so that was good.
And were you working with a dialect coach for the accent work, or because you love kind of playing around with accents anyway? Was it just kind of spending some time by yourself as well, just stepping into it?
100%. I mean, even when I was reading the script and doing my auditions and, doing the scenes, the accent, I had so much fun, practicing it and preparing for it and preparing for all of Abigail's scenes. And I did have a dialect coach there if I needed to ask some particular words that I thought were strange or some particular words that I found tricky to do. So that was really helpful as well.
I love that. And, in terms of some of the research that you did for the role as well, you were talking about how when you had the really big stunt teeth, that it's less about lines of dialogue at that point. But there's a lot of kind of like snarling and that sort of thing. And I know that you were watching a lot of YouTube videos of people playing vampires. Were there particular videos that you found really helpful for finding who Abigail was going to be?
Well, I think I hadn't seen a lot of vampire films before. The only vampire series that I'd seen was Vampire Diaries. So for me, I didn't know a lot about vampires. I knew, the obvious things about daylight and things like that, but I got to learn so much playing the character of Abigail, things that I wouldn't have known. So yeah, I did watch so many YouTube videos. I looked up vampires growling and vampires snarling with their teeth to really help me. I watched so many so I could try and, form Abigail herself and what she would be like. And talking to Matt and Tyler, our amazing directors, really helped with that too.
And I also love that you're such a fan of the horror genre as well coming into doing this. And so what was the experience of getting to play a character who at the beginning is kind of pretending and playing that she's afraid of everything around her, but then actually in turn is the one that they should all be afraid of?
It was so much fun getting to play the two sides of Abigail. I mean, in one film, getting to see so many different characteristics of one character was just so exciting and something that I loved so much about Abigail's character. And at the start of the film, you see her innocent and sweet side, and if you go into the theater not knowing what's coming and you haven't seen any trailers or any clips, that's kind of what I was really focusing on, trying to make everyone, not only the kidnappers, but everyone in the audience, believing that this was this sweet and innocent girl that had just been kidnapped. And I spent weeks and weeks in that bed crying and like every scene. And I couldn't wait until the scene where I transformed into Abigail, her true self. I couldn't wait to get out of that bed and stop crying.
I do love though at the beginning when they've kidnapped her and they've taken her into that room that there's a moment where you see her fight back. And so before you necessarily even know that she's going to turn into a vampire, did you talk with your directors about her still having a little bit of fight in her even when she's kind of playing sweet and innocent?
100%. I mean, we wanted to make it make sense as well. So, although you do see this other side of Abigail, we didn't want it to be like two completely different people and two completely different characters. So, I think for me, I was trying to still always remember who she was and that she was Abigail playing this act. So that it wasn't Alisha playing Abigail playing this other act. I was just Abigail playing this other side of Abigail that she does for all the people she brings, but also always remembering who she really was. And it wasn't just a completely different little girl.
Yeah. And even just the fact that, even in vampire form, it's like the people that she's luring into this trap are people that are related to her father. And ultimately, at the end of the day, even as a vampire, she just wants her dad to love her. And so, did you find that even though you were playing a vampire, a lot of it was still thinking about it the same way that you would any other character because of that?
100%. I mean, in Abigail, she's got so much to unfold and so much to reveal. And she comes across to people in so many different ways. I mean, in the start, you feel for her, then she turns and you don't like her. You want everyone else to win. And then you go through so many different emotions and you're on so many different people's sides because Abigail's got so much going on. And you really see, like I was saying earlier, not only the two main sides of Abigail, but you also, even when she is putting on the act and back to her relationship with Joey, she's never met anyone with this relationship. And I think although she's playing an act, some of it's true. And you also see a vulnerability side of Abigail, which I think was, like I was saying earlier, getting to play so many different sides of one character was really, really fun.
It's also interesting because she's been alive for centuries. And so there's also the facet of she's probably just a bit bored. And I love that through your performance, we get to see how she actually really enjoys the game that she's playing with everyone around her. Was that something that your directors gave you, or was that in the script, just like the joy and playfulness of Abigail?
100%. I mean, when you see the film, you can see how much Abigail's enjoying herself. And, as it comes out and everything gets revealed, you find out she's been doing this for a very long time. And, there's so much to be revealed about her past and her history with her father and why she's there. But all we know is that Abigail needs to be there. She has to be there. She has no other choice but to enjoy herself. And I definitely did talk to Matt and Tyler about that side of Abigail. And like she says, she likes playing with her food. And we wanted to really show that side of Abigail as well, that she was enjoying this. This is fun to her. And this is what she does on the daily to enjoy herself and to, have a show.
And when she is in vampire form as well, one of the other things is that she moves incredibly quickly because that's part of the lore of vampires. And so was that quite different in terms of just the physical side of playing that element of the character and having to kind of move very fast, very swiftly?
Yes, like there's so many. Abigail, I mean, like we were saying about the different sides to her, but
Yeah.
she's also doing stunts and she's also doing ballet. So balancing all of that in one character to me was so exciting all of the time. I never felt, sometimes I was definitely nervous, but I never felt pressure. I was determined to do everything that I could do and everything that I was allowed to do on the stunt sides and the ballet side. I was so excited to do, and I thought it was just so exciting. And I had so much to experiment with on the side, like we were talking about, where everything she was doing was in a balletic form. I loved getting to play with that side of Abigail too. But everything that I was allowed to do on the stunt side of it, I wanted to do.
I love that. And especially because, some of the stunts that you were doing yourself as well involved like the moment where we see her walking along the railings, or you got the chance to do levitation and some acrobatic flips. What were some of the most complicated stunts that you ended up having the opportunity to do?
I mean, like you said, the banister, that was tricky at times because that was an actual banister, but of course I was on wires. So if I fell off the side of it, I would just hang and float in the air, just like flying around. And so getting the balance of that also, because they couldn't take all of my weight, I also had to do a little bit of it myself. So it didn't look like she was just not even touching the banister. So at times that was challenging, but I think there's a big fight sequence at the end of the film as well, and that took a good bit of rehearsing as well. But the stunt team were so helpful and had so much patience with all of us, and I enjoyed getting to do all of them. And it's not every day you get to go on wires and fly around the place and levitate, like you said. So I couldn't wait to do it all.
It's also not every day that you're covered in that much fake blood as well. And I know that kind of it sounds like at the beginning of the day they would put some of the dried fake blood and then they would be reapplying and adding more throughout the day. And so what was the experience of that? Because as the film goes on, there's even more and more of that.
Yeah, like you said, as Abigail goes on and the story goes on, the blood just piles and piles on top of each other. And at the start, I'd never been in a horror film, and I'd never been in a film with blood, full stop, never mind that much blood. So at the start, it was definitely really strange being covered in that much blood. And they'd put the dry blood on in the mornings, and then when we got on set, they'd start with the wet blood and sticky blood all over the place. And I mean, Abigail had so many tutus, like so many different ones, because they all had different amount of bloods on a different amount of blood on them. And there was a rack one day, and every single tutu had more and more blood as they went on. And the very last tutu was just, it wasn't white at all. It was fully red. Every single part of it was red.
It's amazing. And I wanted to talk a little bit as well about Abigail's relationship with Joey, played by Melissa Barrera, because you were touching upon that a little bit before. Because I think it's actually really lovely to see the way that Joey responds to Abigail when she first transforms in front of her. Everybody else is at 100% fear level. And Joey, is afraid, but she also still sees her as a person and as a human. And so, how did the two of you work together to really build that dynamic and kind of the very weird friendship that starts to exist between them?
As soon as I met Melissa on our chemistry read in my last audition, we clicked. I knew that we were going to get along so well, and she's such an amazing actress and an amazing person in real life as well. So getting to share that connection with Melissa on screen was just, it was amazing. And I think, like I was talking about earlier, Abigail's never ever she's been living centuries, she's been doing this for centuries, but she's never come across someone like Joey who's cared for her, who didn't want to hurt her, who was there for different reasons. And I think some of the other the other kidnappers would have hurt Abigail. And I think that's why, in some ways, she feels that connection. And although Joey feels betrayed when she finds out who Abigail really is, Abigail does have a connection with Joey that she's never had with anyone else, and she does tell Joey some truth that she's never told anyone that she's brought there. And I think that's a really important connection that they make, and getting to share that with Melissa in real life was amazing. And I look up to her so much, and especially on set, I was always watching her and learning from her, and she was always giving me the best advice. And yeah, I was always just looking up to her and learning from her.
And it's so great as well when you get to work with any cast that you always get to see how they work and to learn from them. And so working alongside Melissa Barrera, Dan Stevens, Catherine Newton, what were some of the things that you started to really learn from just watching the different ways that they all work as actors?
I mean, I learned so much. I mean, every single person and every single cast member was incredible and played their characters so well. And I mean, going from Matilda with so many kids, being surrounded by that many kids, to Abigail, which has no kids, and I'm working with adults all day, every day, which was definitely strange sometimes, but every single cast member was so kind to me and always so helpful. And like Melissa, I was watching them all the time. I was trying to learn from them, and there were so many people on set, and I was nervous sometimes, and didn't know what to expect, as it's all very, very new to me. But every single cast member was so kind and so helpful, and that definitely calmed lots of my nerves.
Well, you did such an amazing job in this film. It's a really fantastic performance, and it's so interesting to hear your experience of making the film. So thank you so much, Alisha. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.